This is Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. When you think about the biggest movies or TV shows of the past year, what comes to mind? Maybe it's the lush Thai landscape of White Lotus, or the special effects of live-action Lilo and Stitch. To make an excellent film, though, you don't have to fly across the world or build an expensive soundstage. You can do it right here in this region, as long as you have the vision, the connections, and the know-how to make it happen. Today on the show, we're going to learn how to make a film in Vermont with two locals who have recently done just that. Also, stay tuned till the end of the hour because later we're going to hear about a new art exhibition at Shelburne Museum that'll change how you see and hear, yes, hear, contemporary art. But first, we're sticking with film. We're joined today from Bellows Falls by Emma Schlenoff of Witness Oak Productions. She's the producer on a new film that premiered earlier this year called The Obelisk, and she's on the board of the Vermont Production Collective. Emma, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Michaela. It's great to be here.
Great to have you, and congrats on the new film.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really exciting.
We're also joined by the co-founder and board chair of the Vermont Production Collective, Chad Irvin. He's the director of a new documentary called Gone Guys about the social isolation and other challenges facing men and boys in America. Chad, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. And listeners, you can join this conversation as well. Perhaps you've worked on a film production in our region, or you have questions about how it's done. You can give us a call this hour at 800-639-2211 or send us an email to vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. Well, I'd like to start by learning a little bit more about each of your films. They're very different. Emma, yours is called The Obelisk, and it was shot mostly in southern Vermont, and it's sort of a semi-apocalyptic version of the Northeast. What's the premise of this film?
So the premise is exactly as you said, a seemingly post-apocalyptic suspense thriller, adventure thriller, we like to call it. And yes, we filmed almost exclusively in southern Vermont, a little bit in New York and a little bit in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, but almost all right around Bellows Falls, actually.
What do you think it says about Vermont that you didn't have to build any sets or use a soundstage to build the illusion of a post-apocalyptic world here?
That's a good question. So from a producing standpoint, it's great for us because we could just go out into these locations and use them as they are. But in relation to the kind of the messaging of the project itself, the film is really about perspective. So you turn in one direction and things look rusted and falling down and decrepit, and you turn the other direction and you see a beautiful view. And this is everywhere in the US and around the world. But it was both a production element that we wanted to talk about in this production, but also just really useful from a budgetary standpoint.
Right. Well, let's take a listen to a bit of the trailer here.
I was chewed up and spit out. Used. We all were. They covered it up like they always do with their sweet talk, but we know the truth. Where to find it.
Who do we hear speaking there?
So that's Gino Anthony Pesci. He plays Pliny in the film. He's a military vet that David, the other main character who you'll hear from in a little bit on the show, played by Alexi Hartley-Shea, meets along his journey. He wakes up in what feels like destroyed America, and he's making his way through this ravaged landscape until he comes across this guy, Pliny, that you just heard, who convinces him that the reason why we're in this mess is because the government has poisoned or contaminated our water system as a way to track people. It started as a military operation and then expanded to everyone because it was so effective. So he convinces him to go on this journey with him. And the film was really about their trip together.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about how you created this film right here in Vermont. But first, let's bring in Chad, whose new movie is called Gone Guys. This is a documentary film. Chad, what is it about?
Yes, we're looking at the sort of over the last 50 years or so, the steady disengagement of boys and young men from school, work, and broader society, and the ways that this sort of disengagement cascades into later life and mental health issues and substance abuse and stuff like that.
I feel like there's some connection to be drawn there between these two films.
I was just going to say the same thing. There really is. It's interesting that I can't wait to see Chad's film, but that's kind of exactly what's going on in the obelisk is these two men that are, trying to find their way.
And Chad,
Yes, we should totally do like a double feature sometime and have both of
We
them back to
should.
back.
yes, this is the type of creative thinking we're hoping for on Vermont Edition. And Chad, you also filmed here in Vermont. What were the communities that you went into?
Oh gosh, we filmed all around the state. In fact, I don't think that we actually crossed state borders for any of our filming. We were in Newport, in Bradford, in Burlington, in Brattleboro, in I'm trying. And a little bit in Montpelier too, where I'm based. All over the place, different, looking at different programs and talking about both the struggles that the boys and young men are facing, and also looking at rays of hope, innovative solutions, and stuff like that. Which is there's a lot of that in the state, which is great.
And let's take a listen to a clip from the trailer for Gone Guys.
My experience in school, I got in trouble a lot. Went to the principal's office quite a bit. I felt very alone, and I just felt no one understood me.
So many of these kids that I've worked with who have trouble relating to school do just amazing things at home. What is it that we do in schools that causes that drive to learn to go away?
And who are we hearing in that clip?
Well, the first person was one of our young participants, and then the second actually is Ken Caddaw, the Vermont author who wrote Gather, and is
A
actually
best-selling YA novel from a few years back.
That's right, and last year's Vermont Humanities Vermont Reads book, and going into the filming, we sort of looked at Ken's book Gather as the heart of the story we were looking to tell, and this other book called Of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves as sort of the brain, the data brain of the story, and so that is, but Ken, in addition to being an author, is also the co-principal at one of the schools we visited. It was amazing to get to hang out with them and see the ways that they were looking to help these young men connect.
Well, I've seen the screeners of both of these films. They are incredible, and I'm so excited for our audiences to get to watch them. And it's particularly special that they were both made right here in our region. As people who have made a living in the film industry, you are not in California. You are not in Vancouver. You are here in Vermont. Emma, what first brought you, or not brought you to Vermont, but like helped you, the first moment where you're like, I could actually have the career I want in film here, not somewhere else?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Bellows Falls. So I grew up here and always wanted to work in film from an early age. And I did live in California and I did live in New York. And I'm just a country girl at heart. This is where life makes sense to me. And when we were living in LA, although I was working and doing, doing well financially, my values were back home, and I wanted to build a house and start a family, and So I came home to do that, but I
Not just
wanted
a
to.
house. You live in a tree house, right? I saw that somewhere.
We call it a tree house. It's built up. It's built high up on a hill, so it feels like a tree house, and there is like a tree in the middle of it. But yeah, um, but I always wanted. I knew I wanted to keep film as part of what I was doing. I didn't know how I was going to do that until I was already deep into the house building project and had two babies, and Lexi came along with this project, and off we went.
And Chad, you lived in Boston before Vermont, so you've been here for a number of years now. Can you tell us about your own journey to create a film career for yourself here?
Yeah, I worked for a long time as a documentary film editor, so it's a little bit easier. I feel like a lot of times we talk about filmmakers, and it can be sort of an exclusive sounding term.
Yeah.
To me, a filmmaker is anyone who works on the film, and there are a lot of those in Vermont, actually. But being an editor, and I was already sort of doing remote work, thankfully for me, ahead of the pandemic. Also, like Emma, we were looking for a quality of life upgrade, looking for living expenses like decreasing slightly to get a little bit more creative freedom. And so it was relatively seamless for me to be able to pick up. I just needed like a good internet connection to be able
Well,
to relocate.
that could be tough too.
Well, that's why I'm in the city in Montpelier, though the internet is getting better around the state. I actually made a film about that last year. But yeah, so I was able to sort of pop up here and no one really knew the difference. And I edited films for a few years, still sort of doing the same thing as we grew into taking on more of our own projects.
And I can imagine that there's so much here in this region that you can rely on, from local talent to, Emma, as you said, to landscapes where you can film beautiful scenes. But I imagine there must be some things that this region is lacking that you have to outsource, or particular challenges. Emma, for you, with your experience making the obelisk, what were some of those challenges?
Some of the challenges, finding sound people is surprisingly hard. Luckily, we got really lucky, and I was introduced to a very local Saxons River fellow who came on board the project. But that is actually why I ended up connecting with Vermont Production Collective in the first place. It was during the pandemic, and I was looking for an assistant camera person, and I was connected to Chad, and he helped me, think through what to do about finding the right person. And that's really how I got my start with the production collective as well. And I later joined the board, but it was this kind of fractured network that's been a big challenge.
Yeah, Chad,
Even though they
go
are
ahead.
here, the filmmakers are here. It's just a matter of being able to know how to get in touch with them.
Everyone's just hiding in the woods. It's like kind of our thing. You got to sniff them out.
Tree houses.
Yeah, I know. So, Chad, yes, you founded, you're the chair of the board of the Vermont Production Collective. What are some of the most common requests or challenges that people like Emma are coming to you with, saying, I need help with this in order to make it in film in Vermont, or to be able to make this film I'm dreaming up?
Well, the biggest challenge is sort of what, other than sound people, yes, that is a common question. The biggest challenge was that we have these little pockets of creativity. Like White River Junction has a great community. There's another one in Brattleboro, in Burlington, but none of these were connected to each other. So your pool of talent, your pool of people you could learn from and collaborate with, it was relatively small. If these people were busy, then you're just sort of out of luck. So we started trying to interconnect these different groups in a way so that we could give people greater chances to collaborate. Also, if you're more accessible as a group, it makes it a little bit easier to say you just graduated school and you're looking to get an introduction or something. It makes it way easier. You can sort of connect online and follow along on what sort of work that they do. Is it the sort of thing you're interested in? It makes it a little bit less daunting than, I'm going to get this person's phone number out of the phone book and call them up. Especially, this is a thing that comes up a lot talking with different generations of people, from like millennials and younger. It's especially like, I'm supposed to call this person on the phone, uh, or show up at
Horrifying.
their house in their driveway and be like, "Hey, I'd love to network." This makes it, you can talk and it's less daunting, and then maybe connect at like a film festival and you have like a casual chat, and this is a way that you get your foot in the door if you're new, or if you're changing careers or something like that.
Hmm. Well, I have more questions for you on that, and I really like the idea of just knocking and saying, "Hey, do you want to make this film with me, lady in a treehouse?" But we do have to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're also going to be joined by a Vermont-based actor and writer who's going to give us his perspective on local filmmaking. And we would love to hear from you as well. If you have a question about making a movie in this region, or you've done it and have some advice to share, give us a call at 800-639-2211. And our email is vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Thanks for listening to Vermont Edition, where support comes from Wendell's Furniture, home of wendellsdeals.com, offering furniture designed for a range of budgets, in stock and ready for summer. wendellsdeals.com. And Vermont Construction's Roofing Division, offering roof installation and repair with free estimates on asphalt and standing seam metal roofs. Now serving all of Vermont and northern New York. More at vtroofing.com.
Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. If you are just joining us, we are talking about what it's like to create a feature-length movie or documentary outside of Hollywood and instead in Vermont. Our guests are filmmaker Emma Schlenoff, a producer on the new film The Obelisk, which was filmed largely in southern Vermont, and Chad Irvin, board chair at the Vermont Production Collective. He's the director of the new documentary Gone Guys, about male social isolation and its impacts on our society. And let's add one more voice to the conversation here. Alexi Hartlieb-Shea is a co-writer of the film The Obelisk and its lead actor. He is based in Vermont, but is joining us from somewhere in Europe. Alexi, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Where are you right now?
Right now I'm in Austria. I'm actually preparing a short film over here. I'm joining you from Vienna at the moment.
Wow. Well, thank you for calling in from across the pond. Now, I hear that your mom was a film professor at St. Mike's in Colchester. So you've been around film in Vermont your whole life, right?
Yeah, that's actually definitely how my interest in film began. My mom was a film professor, so from a very early age, I was watching pretty well-known movies, and that just had a pretty big impact on me later in life, and ultimately sort of that was the spark that got me into wanting to make movies.
And we were talking with Emma and Chad earlier in the hour about figuring out how to make careers for themselves in the film industry in Vermont, where it's not such a hotbed of filmmaking as larger cities in the U.S. Did you ever have a period of life where you were trying to live in L.A. or another place that might be a bit more conducive to building a career in film? And how did you end up in Vermont?
I did actually live in Los Angeles for a few years. Oddly enough, I wasn't doing anything related to film. It was only when I came back to Vermont that I sort of really decided that this was something that I really wanted to or needed to pursue. And I think, to be fair, I mean, it's I think sometimes being a small fish in a small pond can actually be way more helpful, because even though there's a small group of people, you instantly have way more access and responsibilities on a film set. If you're in a smaller pond, for example.
Yeah. And Vermont is a unique pond too, in that we have a different way of regulating. I don't know what the right word is here. Maybe let's go with regulating. Regulating the film industry, taxing it, making those connections at sort of a state and government level. Chad, I imagine you have a lot of experience with this. Can you kind of explain for me and our listeners how at the state level Vermont's film industry might be different than in other states?
Whew, you gave me the easy question,
Oh, yeah. Enjoy.
I mean, I did help as part of, there was I'm not going to remember the name of the committee now. There was a commission that looked into this a few years ago, and there's not a state film commission. There's not a tax incentive here in Vermont. It does tend to be the focus and fixation for a lot of people when we talk about this in the state. It's always, for me, I always end up sort of trying to pivot into sort of what our focus always was with Vermont Production Collective, is advise the state on where we could use help, but really focus our efforts on what we could tangibly make an effect on. How can we actually help? So help connecting people, help try and foster a self-sustaining ecosystem of film here, outside of things that are just a whole lot harder to control. And even if you're able to affect them, then it's you're prone to the whims of budgetary decisions and stuff like that. So I tend to focus more on, how can we get out and get our hands dirty and make some impact? It's sort of like Alexi said, the great thing about working on film here is that, like in Los Angeles, you got to work up over years and years and years before you might be able to get a chance, like holding a camera, like legitimately making a contribution to a film. But here on a smaller crew where you're closer personal relationships, and you're often thrown in, and you get a lot more hands-on experience a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But so that's my preference.
Yeah. I'm curious for your thoughts here, having just gone through the process of making a film in Vermont. What was the most helpful type of connections that you made at the state and municipal level, and what could you have used more of?
Yeah, so this film was we relied on the local municipalities with such a heavy hand. They were an integral part of the success of this. I very early on in the process got in touch with the Rockingham town folks and the police departments and the fire departments, and they were with us every step of the way, and we couldn't have done that. We couldn't have finished this without them. So at a state level, I wouldn't say there wasn't any direct connection there that I can think of, but definitely with all the little towns that we passed through.
Yeah, Alexi, I'm curious for your thoughts there. What was it like making those connections with towns and municipal officials in order to make this film that you spent so much time writing?
Like Emma said, certainly at a local level, just getting, meeting everybody, and we couldn't have done it without the support of all the people in all the different towns where we filmed. And it was just such a unique experience, sort of combining this sort of like local Vermont culture and lifestyle and the sort of community world with sort of the multicultural aspect of our film crew, because we had people from all over the world on this set. So it was just a fascinating mix of people mixed in with sort of small town Vermont. So it was a beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah. So you produced it with an Austrian production partner, and I saw that the score was also recorded with an Estonian choir from Tallinn. Are you responsible for making those connections, being partially based in Europe?
No. So that was actually through Bela Baptiste, our director. He's Austrian and French, and is based out of New York now. And he knew a gentleman named Jonas Tarn, who's a composer, and Jonas wrote the score for this movie and selected stuff. And they had I think a 50-person choir in Tallinn record this for us. And again, it was just another global aspect to this sort of local project, which makes it kind of unique.
Yeah. And Alexi, before we let you get back to Austrian life, I am wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the inspiration for this story. When did you write the script?
So I wrote the script with Bela Baptiste, the director, sort of during COVID, during the pandemic. At the time, I was living in Vermont, so Vermont really inspired the shape and the feeling and all the locations of the film. I was in southern Vermont at the time for a lot of the pandemic, and that really was the bed where the script sort of was made. And the script writing is sort of a longer process, so you have some initial ideas and it sort of develops over time. And I think combining sort of the locations that I was seeing and around in Vermont, combined with Bela had some personal experience with conspiracy theories in his family, just sort of plus the whole media world we were sort of living in, especially during COVID, with objectivity and manipulation and the media, and a lot of those themes. That's sort of how we sort of got rolling and kind of combined all those things to make the movie that we have today.
Well, congratulations on making this film become a reality. I can't wait for people to see it. Alexi Hartlieb Shea is a co-writer of The Obelisk and one of the lead actors. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Now, I would like to share how folks can watch these films. Chad, Gone Guys is currently in the midst of a number of screenings and post-screening discussions all around the state, right?
That's correct. Yes, it was always a focus for us. This film is made in the presenting sponsors are the Richard E. and Deborah L. Tarrant Foundation and the Vermont Community Foundation. And in collaboration with them, our focus, first of all, was always let's make something that we can share with communities that could lead to having a conversation about how these issues are relevant in their lives and lead to a conversation about, okay, well, what solutions might work locally to help address these things. So as I've been joking with people, it takes almost as much work to plan a screening tour as it does to make a film. I'm learning, but we're also like engaging. We're not to like parachuting experts into each town. So we try and every place we have a screening, we're engaging people who are local civic leaders or run like a mentorship group in town or, that sort of thing. So it's like try and foster a legitimate community discussion in each place. But I think we've got like a couple months out scheduled and are starting like a next batch of screenings. We were, as my wife is reminding me recently, having champagne problems in that the response has been very strong and we've gotten a flood of requests for screening events in all sorts of towns, in Vermont, in upstate New York City, a few in Massachusetts, and actually one just came in yesterday, I think, from London.
Wow.
Across the pond, as you said. I'm like, well, we'll try and get to you as soon as we can. Let us take care of Bellows Falls first, where we're headed tonight.
I like where your priorities lie, Chad. Well, that's great to hear that it's getting such a powerful local response. And Emma, with the obelisk, I know it premiered recently, but as I understand it, this business of festivals and premieres is more political and strategic than those of us outside the film industry might realize. How's that all work? And where do you stand in the process?
Yeah, so we just did have our world premiere at Dances with Films at the Chinese Theater in the heart of Hollywood, which couldn't have been more opposite of where we live.
Right.
And that was such an incredible experience. And you're right about the politics and the kind of the strategy that goes into this. So everyone, all the festivals want to be your premiere of some sort, world, international, regional. And it's extremely competitive to get into festivals. So once you finish a film, there's a whole nother part of the job that comes up, which is the festival distribution marketing section of the film. So that's the phase we're in now, and we have a bunch of applications out to other festivals. We started with the kind of bigger ones, and then we'll move towards this next season of more regional and the Vermont ones that we have our fingers crossed that will be screened at. And then we're also in talks with some sales agents and direct to distributors, and we have several offers on the table. So just trying to navigate what's the best choice for this project and get it out to people, because that's why we made it, right?
And Emma, I would be remiss if I didn't mention a very exciting Easter egg in this film for Vermont public listeners. They will be excited to hear that our very own Jane Lindholm makes a cameo, right?
That's right. That's right. It was a dream come true. I've been listening to Vermont Edition forever and had always been a fan of hers, and reached out to her and couldn't believe it when she responded back, and has been a really wonderful part of this process, where when we had a few private screenings this winter, and going back to that point about like local towns and showing up for us, it wasn't just the municipal folks, it was everyone in the town. And we had a screening in Bellows Falls that 250 people showed up at, because they all felt like they were a part of this project, because they all gave and they were all part of its success. So Jane actually came down for that screening and helped us moderate, and it's been really a treat to have her be a part of this project.
You'll have to watch the film to find out what role she plays. Emma Schlenoff is a producer on the new film, The Obelisk. Emma, thank you so much for your time today, and congrats on this film.
Thank you so much. And if you want to stay in touch with the film and find out where we will be screening, you can sign up for our newsletter at our website, which is the-obelisk.com. And I also wanted to talk about the Production Collective. We can follow us on all the social media sites, and we're in the middle of a fundraising campaign. If anyone's interested in the work we do, you can check us out online there. VermontProductionCollective.org is the website there.
And Chad Irvin is the founder and board chair of the Vermont Production Collective and the director of the new documentary Gone Guys, which is screening around Vermont this summer. Chad, thank you so much for your time as well.
Yes, thank you, and it's great. Thanks to Emma for squeezing in the Vermont Production Collective info there. That I won't have to hear it from the rest of the board for forgetting it.
She's a true professional.
Yes, I love it. We've got such a great committed team. But yeah, I should squeeze in GoneGuysFilm.com is we're adding screening dates and more information about the film, and we're going to add additional content that digs a little bit deeper into each of the locations around the state where we filmed. So folks will be able to do a deeper dive, and there will be resources for classrooms and other screenings too.
All right, Chad, Emma, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michaela.
Coming
you.
up, we are going to head to Shelburne Museum, which is celebrating contemporary Indigenous art in ways that you can both see and hear. That's in just a minute on Vermont Edition. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Shelburne Museum in Chittenden County celebrates a wide range of American art. If you visit, you'll find everything from a round barn full of circus-themed figurines to a Ticonderoga steamboat permanently beached on a green field. And through the end of October, you can also visit the exhibition Making Noise, Indigenous Sound Art. The pieces on display are all by Indigenous artists, and they merge sound and textile design to create interactive works. Here to tell us more is curator Victoria Sunnergren, Shelburne Museum's curator of Native American art. Welcome to Vermont Edition.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So when people walk into this exhibition, what's one of the first things that they're going to see? What's the first impression you're trying to create?
You know, there's several really big works in the exhibit that really draw the eye. But I think the main thing that people tend to see first are Marie Watts' Sky Dances Light. They're giant sculptural amorphous kind of clouds hanging from the ceiling. And they're completely adorned with jingle cones, these tin cones that are rolled up and hanging by ribbons. And you can just run in and touch them and make noise with them. I've seen so many children where their eyes just light up as soon as they open the door and see those.
So you've curated historic exhibits in the past. What led you to focus on contemporary art and contemporary sound art specifically for this one?
Yeah, contemporary art and contemporary Indigenous art is really my passion. That's what I really love to work on. I really love being able to work directly with living artists and amplify their own voices. And I'm really interested in how historic arts and contemporary arts speak to each other and are able to, how the historic arts really inform contemporary artists today and how contemporary artists are responding to that. So getting to work on this exhibit where they're really such contemporary works, they're such contemporary forms, but they're drawing on these historic textile designs was straight up my wheelhouse.
Well, it sounds so exciting. I'm excited to go see it myself. Our producer and John and our intern Callie did get to visit the museum yesterday to experience these installations. And I want to take a listen now to one of the recordings that they made there. And this is from a very large piece that has long metal strings zigzagging along it that can be plucked and played. Let's listen. Tell us more about this piece and this artist.
Yeah, I love this piece so much. This is by Nanaba Chacon, who's Dene and Chicana, and she's based in Albuquerque. And she was working with sound engineer Lucas Gonzalez on this piece because this was completely conceived of and designed just for this exhibit. So she had never done something like this before. She's a big mural artist and has done some really amazing public arts pieces in the past, including some that have incorporated some sound. But this is the first one she's done where you can play the strings and really do that kind of direct interaction. And so she's really interested here in the resonance between our bodies and the sound waves and thinking about what we put out into the world and what we get back. But it's also really inspired by historic Dene weavings. And we have a couple on view in the gallery, so you can really see that comparison for yourself. But the colors and shapes that she's using and the way that she's thinking about lines is really drawing on those historic weaving designs. So I'm really excited about this piece. This was a big leap of trust for us, being able to tell the other staff as we were preparing this exhibit that we don't have photos, we don't entirely know like how it works. I don't understand the sound engineering aspect of it at all.
Just go with it.
Just trust us, it'll be fine.
Let's take a listen to another recording. This one changes its sound depending on your proximity to the piece. And here's a little of what you can hear. Very very different sound than that first piece we listened to. Can you tell us about this artist?
Yeah, this is From Elsewhere by Kite. She's Oglala Lakota, and she is a professor. But this piece is really interesting because the artwork is engaging back with you. You know, we go to museums and we look at the art and we engage with it. We think about it. We talk about it to whoever we brought with us. But this piece at the same time is looking back at us and talking back to us as we move and think about it. It's thinking about us, which I find so fascinating and such an interesting conversation point when we think about how we engage with non-human elements of our environment and how non-human beings can still interact with us.
Wait, tell us more. How is it thinking about us? Now I'm a little scared of it.
Nothing to be scared of. It's not recording. It's not AI. It's not, linking faces to identities or anything like that. But the way that it is looking for faces and then changing the sounds based on what faces it sees is very much a response to us being in the room with it and engaging with it.
Now, this exhibition opened in June. What has interested or surprised you about how people have responded to the pieces so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really appreciate exhibits like this one that have so many layers of access and so different modes of learning from it and how much and what you want to get out of it. So some folks will come in and spend hours in the exhibit reading every label and talking to our guides and really engaging with each piece. And others, especially some of the children, will just come in and make some noises, and that's totally fine. We talk in the exhibit about especially the jingle cones making a healing noise. They were originally designed by the Ojibwe tribe as a part of a healing practice for a sick young girl. And so being able to run in there and make a healing noise with the jingle cones is absolutely a valid point of access for this exhibit. And so I love that there's so many different ways to engage with it and so much different knowledge, but also just feelings and emotions that you can take away.
Yeah. And I also hear that you've received some feedback from people who say that this isn't what they were expecting from an exhibit on Indigenous art. What kind of conversations has that opened up?
Yeah, I think, because there's two works in the exhibit that are made just for this exhibit. There's another piece by Kite as well that's part of a series she's worked on, but this design was particularly for Shelburne Museum. So even among the staff, we weren't entirely sure what to expect. But I think in general, the public are really interested to learn how contemporary Native art is and how much it reflects other trends going on in contemporary American art as well. And it's just a very new thing for a lot of folks. And so I really appreciate folks kind of coming in and learning that they didn't know what they didn't know.
Right.
And really using this exhibit as a jumping off point for learning more.
Well, there's one other installation that we have some sound from. This features large dangling bunches of metal pieces, which you were describing earlier, that can be touched and even walked through to produce a sound. So let's take a listen to that. It almost sounds like seashells to me.
Yeah. It's funny. There's so many different reference points in that work as to what it resembles and what it sounds like. Seashells is one. I've also heard them called trees or part of a forest. I've heard them called clouds. Everybody has their kind of own takeaway from those pieces, and it's really fun to see.
Yeah, and it's interesting how different just these three examples that we've played today are from one another. And listening to them without seeing the thing that is producing them too, it kind of creates each one. I'm like kind of feeling in a different part of my body. Not to get into therapy speak too much, but the first one with the dissonance, I was like really feeling that in my chest, and then the second one is a little lighter. And there's so much difference and diversity here.
Yeah, and they all work really well together. It's really exciting when we get, a large group in the exhibit and people are kind of working with different artworks at the same time, and you get those sounds kind of merging together. It's really beautiful in there.
So what was the process like for selecting the artists for this show? How did you make these connections?
Yeah, so there's kind of a different story for each of them. There's 5 artists in the show, as well as a sound engineer and a computer programmer. So lots going on here.
Nice.
I'll say one of the artists, Nanaba Chacon, I've been aware of since I was a freshman or sophomore in undergrad. And I remember, being very early in my career and seeing her art and thinking, one day I'll be a big shot curator and get to work with her.
And look at you now.
Look at me now. I got to send my fangirl email and be like, today's the day. Another artist recently got her MFA. So Chelsea Bighorn graduated with her MFA last year. And so as part of her MFA thesis show, she was working on some of the pieces that are in this exhibit. And I kind of tried to track the big artists coming out with their graduate works and look at their thesis work. So I asked her at the time to send me some photos of what she was working on. And I knew it would be perfect for this show. And then as a final example, the jingle dress that's in the exhibit that really contextualizes and tells us about the history of the jingle dress and why the jingle cones and other works are so important. It's really hard to get a jingle dress because they're really custom made to dancers' measurements. And so there's not a ton just floating around waiting for museums to borrow. And so, I was talking to lots of folks from the community about who was making jingle dresses and might have one and who would be a good representative. And I was all over Instagram looking at all the different jingle dress designers. And Arius posted this one, and I was immediately like, that has to be it. That has to be the one. It's so perfect for the exhibit. And so messaged her and reached out, and it was very exciting. She had just made her, decided that her next goal that she was going to manifest was getting a piece in a museum. And I was like, hello, let's work together.
Wow, that's lovely to hear, and very interesting to hear how you're using Instagram and other social media platforms to connect with artists these days.
Yeah, I think that's part of working with contemporary artists.
Yeah.
They're all over social media.
Now, the Shelburne Museum is working on constructing the Perry Center for Native American Art, and Native American art has increasingly become a focus there at the museum. I wonder if you could speak to that a bit and the role that this particular corner of the art world plays in curating at Shelburne.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear folks talk about how Native art is becoming a bigger thing at Shelburne Museum because it's kind of always been a part of the museum. One of the earliest acquisitions from 1947, the year we opened, was when our founder went to Lewis Comfort Tiffany's estate sale and bought a bunch of indigenous baskets from the Plateau region and the Northwest Coast. So she was always thinking about indigenous art as crucial to American folk art. And the fact that they came from Lewis Comfort Tiffany's estate, when the museum also has a lot of Lewis Comfort Tiffany silver and other items in the collection. So you can really see that these indigenous arts have been inspiring American artists and have been sometimes appropriated by American artists, but have been largely a part of American art the whole time. And so being able to bring those collections out and combine them with the Perry collection, which is an amazing historic collection that we're so honored to have to be working with and to be stewarding. And so bringing all these arts out into the forefront where folks can learn from them and enjoy them and where they can engage with us just like From Elsewhere engages with us, right? We've had a lot of consultants and artists and scholars come in and visit, and they're all talking to the artwork. And, several of them have asked us, when was the last time someone spoke to one of these pieces in the historic collection? And so now we all make a point of talking to them and letting them be a part of our lives. And so that's really exciting.
Are there other hidden gems from the Perry collection that you are hoping to bring to light or to shine a bit of a spotlight on at the Shelburne Museum in the years to come?
There are so many amazing works in the Perry collection. And I don't want to put out too many spoilers. Not too many spoilers, but I am working right now on the collection catalog for the Perry collection. So that's a book that will come out in a year or two. And we have some amazing indigenous artists who are working with us on that book and contributing to it. And the love that these folks are showing our collections and managing to capture on the page is so heart endearing. These collections are more than just history and more than just art. They're really emotional and really powerful. And so I'm really lucky to be working with them, and I'm really excited to bring them to our audience and our visitors.
Well, when that book comes out, we'll have to have you back on to
Absolutely.
talk more about it. Victoria Sunnergren is the Shelburne Museum's curator of Native American art, and they have a new exhibit that is there through the end of October, all about contemporary Indigenous art and sound. Thank you so much for your time today, Victoria.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, that is all the time that we have for today's show. But before we go, I want to let you know about what we're working on for Monday. We are going to be focused on this new ban in Vermont on a type of insecticides called neonicotinoids, or neonics. They are proven to be very bad for native pollinators, but they are also something that local farmers and landscapers rely on to keep insects at bay. So we're going to take a look at how this ban is going to work and how conditions here in Vermont are a bit different than other places where neonics are banned, like New York and Quebec. So please tune in for that conversation Monday at noon. Today's show was directed by Mary Angish. John Ahrens is our managing producer, and Andrea Lorian and Daniela Fierro are our producers. Our intern is Callie Canuxerl, and our call screener today was Rick Barrett. Our theme music is by Myra Flynn. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch up again soon.